Hello, everyone. My name is Lynn McEntee. I'm your host today for the Toronto Diversity Festival panel discussion for equity and access. We welcome you today as we are opening up our Toronto Diversity Festival, which is going to be happening on August 27th at Nathan Phillips Square, 11 a.m. until 10 p.m. It's going to be wild and crazy, lots happening, and we're all about celebrating unity and diversity and exploring what it means to be a world citizen with Moksha Canada Foundation. So thank you so much to Moksha Canada Foundation for making this happen, for allowing this panel discussion to happen, and inviting our guest experts here today. We're going to open up the floor today to our master chef, Kwasi Douglas, and we're talking about equity and access. And Kwasi, I wondered if you could just share with us your experiences working in the culinary field and how important equity and access is in your field of study.
So we can start with access. Access to food should be for everyone.
Yes.
Access to good, nutritious, life-saving food, it should be a universal right. Equality within food. I've grown up in what I can call the shadow of the CN Tower my entire life. I'm a Toronto-born kid, and I think we need to embrace other cultures' foods. I think food is the great equalizer. It's something that every culture does, something that everyone has to do to maintain life. And I think we literally, as different races and cultures, we all bring something individualized to the table. And it's a great place to start. I think we need to, as Canadian citizens, we need to look at food from other cultures the same way we look at everything else from other cultures. It's building Canada. It's not ethnic food. You don't go out and get an ethnic workforce or an ethnic staff. You get people. You get people to come and work in your business the same way you go to a grocery store and you get food. So, yeah.
Kwasi, we were having a sidebar conversation just about eliminating the ethnic food aisle at the grocery store. Could you speak to that a little bit more before we pass the conversation to Nicole?
I would love to see a way in my lifetime with the ethnic food aisle. It just gives that connotation as this is normal food and this is something different. And I think as long as we're looking at it with that perspective, then we're always going to have a problem. I think if we approach it with just the idea of food, this is where you get your spices. So jerk seasoning and curry powder won't be in an ethnic aisle. They'll be in the other aisle with all the other spices. Something as simple as that. It's a perspective.
I love that perspective.
It's also a mindset, as you said. A mindset has to change. It has to click and say, there's no separation. It's all food. Because it all comes with different nutrients, just like the many people bring different skills, right?
Agreed.
I like that.
And if I can add one thing too to that.
Please, go for it.
That oftentimes that it creates whiteness as the center.
Yes.
And the standard and everything else is other. So when we have those categories, that's what makes that, it continues that perception
Mindset,
of whiteness being normal and the standard, and everything else is other.
division.
And so I completely agree with you that
As a side
Language is
note, I
important.
remember
Eliminated.
reading the bottle
Yeah.
of shampoo as a small child, and it said for normal hair. And I would ask my mom, say, Mom, do I have normal hair? And my mom, with in her Guyanese accent, why we're on to you, yeah, ask me something. But that was the perspective, is that, am I normal? If this is for normal and it's not for me, what am I?
Exactly.
Where do I fit in? And I think if we do away with these things, it can be done.
No, and that creates that other category, you know,
Yeah.
as you said, right? So very much so. What is normal? Define normal. We're all normal. This is life. Wanted to jump over to you, Nicole. Jump in at any time, feel free. And anybody else who wants to jump in and keep the conversation open. Just talking about human rights and how important that is in terms of equity and accessibility. If you could kind of bridge that conversation for us.
Well, I'd like to bridge on what you said.
Yep.
Yes.
Like, we have 30 human rights under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And guess what? Number 25 is
Food.
food and shelter for all. It's a
Important.
human right to have the food. So I really like what you said, and I've never really thought about it. I just thought, oh, that was nice, this is different, and that is different, and I've gone with that, and I never had the concept of, hey, food is food, and don't try it. Because sometimes, like, even like spaghetti, I think doesn't even come from Italy, I think it comes
No.
from somewhere else. And so we make these judgments, or maybe we may have these ideas of where this food comes from, but in the end, it's food,
Yeah.
and it's also
It's
a human
universal
right.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And truly the fabric of life, right? It's connecting us all, interconnectedness with each other. Fred, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, for sure. When I hear the word access into the world of sports is maybe easier way for all the youths to have actually access to practice sport. Equity, well, to me, I hear the word equal, and women and men should be able to have access to the same path, same goal to reach into sports. I don't know if you really understand. Basically, I just want to make an example for women. Boxing in the Olympic was just started for women back in 2008. That was yesterday, but men did boxing in the Olympics for many years. You understand? So that's what I hear when you ask me the question and that question. And to me, I think it's very important that we keep going in the direction that everybody, including like kids, women, men, everyone, has access to practice the sports they like and be treated equal in all types of sports that they want to practice, when we say ethnics, men or women.
That's cool. We're going to double back on that, your points there in terms of accessibility in the sports industry and how important that is. And I guess in terms of conversation before, haves and have-nots, a vocabulary I don't really like, but I've heard referenced before, and trying to eliminate that for accessibility for all people. Just wanted to have Dr. Poulton jump in there in terms of what equity is. What does that look like in terms of a framework for an organization, whether it be in the sports industry, the culinary industry, the human rights orgs, nonprofits? What does that truly look like, and what are we trying to attain by achieving accessible services?
So I can actually piggyback a bit on the sports piece. So I actually grew up in Jane and Finch, born and raised there back in the 70s, 80s, when we know what it was like back then, shootings and drugs and so on, and I made it out, so to speak. But back to the human right piece, food, absolutely, but also education. And because my parents, they immigrated from Trinidad, they instilled in me the value of education. And literally, it's because I can run fast. I ran track and field, sports. That's what got me out of there. That's what got me to achieve my first degree and go on to do a PhD. So access is extremely important. Having the equitable lens for sure once you get there. So that's why we talk about the Title IX, which is making sure that women's and men's sports are treated equally, provide the same resources, the same money, and also in the health in the workplace, same thing. We talked about women making less money than men. I think they make like 75% on the dollar that men do to this day. And so it's extremely important, and in my position as a chief diversity officer, I do look at pay equity and look at how people are being promoted, who's giving opportunities, who's being overlooked, doing investigations in those areas as well, and questioning managers and saying, why did this person get this position over that person, and also having metrics. So if we say we're about diversity, then what exactly are you doing to demonstrate that you're about diversity? Not just saying that you are, but what exactly are the numbers that you expect to achieve by this particular period of time? So the last point I make too with the distinction between equity and equality is equality means that you're going to provide everything to the same resources and opportunities to everybody equally. Equity means you're going to actually think about where is this person starting. So if you look at the track, for example, some people are starting with a 50-yard head start versus others. So we're looking at why are people in this particular position, and how can we help them get ahead so we can actually create some kind of parity with the other people, so that way that people can have the same outcomes, hopefully. That's the goal.
That's all. Thank you very much, all of you. And Kandice, did you want to jump in there?
Well,
Yeah.
I just want to piggyback on the equity and equality, because you mentioned something in regards to the sports and having the access. Access means that when you don't have money, you can still join a team. And that's not happening now.
Nope.
And so when will that start happening? Because we talk about access, we talk about equity, equality. Having interest is not enough. When you have no money, you get no access. And if you do have to get access, there's a runaround, there's application processes, there's so many things that are also hidden from you to gain the access in order to participate. And it happens in many different fields, not just in sports. In music also, if you don't have a great grant writer, you're not going to get any grants. No one is going to support you. So it's always having the access. You can write how many applications, but if they don't know you, if you're not affiliated, guess what? It's a no. And so you have to wonder, when will that change? When will that become not the norm?
And I can also add that into competition in a higher level, when you're not part of the plan of the people qui gèrent,
That administer?
yeah, the
Higher
administrators,
levels.
yeah, higher levels of the administrators, if they didn't see you in their plan, even if you're better than the other one,
You are not put
you
in.
will not have access.
So
They
true.
will stop you, and that needs to end today.
And,
Agreed.
and I also want to talk about the gatekeepers, which are the administrators. These gatekeepers, board members, they have to change their mindset. It's a mindset shift. You have to start thinking, how can we include everyone and give
there's very
everyone
much
a
an
chance?
old boys
Yes.
fraternity idea when it comes to just about
But there
every
are
industry.
women that participate and want to be with the boys. So therefore, they don't
There
include the
there
ones that
are
need to be
dark-skinned
included.
people that want to participate with
Yeah.
the
Yes.
boys.
It's
there
so
are
true.
women,
It's
there
so
are
true.
folks that
And
I
this
don't
is-
identify as either that
And-
need to be respected and heard and have the same opportunities. With my culinary career, I was a social services worker for 18 years. On a whim and at the encouragement of my family, I tried out for Master Chef. I made it to top 12 out of hundreds of thousands of
Yeah,
Canadians. And I decided I wanted to
Pursue this,
pursue a culinary career. I still met doors
of course.
because I didn't
And
meet
even
the
though you reached so
fraternities
far.
Yeah, I still meet doors to this day, unnecessary doors.
Yes.
Doors that I have every credential and every key
Yeah.
to access seem to be jarred in some form of a way. And when the inquiry it's an old boys society.
Gatekeepers.
Yeah, it's people are worried about what they're losing when they see you gaining, and I think that's
Yes.
you know.
Or they don't want you to rise any higher than them.
So taking it back to food, Canadian food loses nothing by
More,
adding my
Cultures,
culture's
yes.
food to the realm of things.
So can I make a point? So I think that's why I think the words that's missing here is accountability.
oh,
Very good.
And I find if there are people who are holding people accountable, so for example, George Floyd, the world was changed, we know, after his murder.
yes.
And I know in the States that the organizations, they pledged like $50 billion to help advance diversity and hiring black people and so on and so on. And there have been some changes. But the point is, if there are people not screaming, and we shouldn't have to scream, but nonetheless, if we're not keeping people to the fire, then they're not going to change. And then back to the point, but the board members, there needs to be a set plan. It's not gonna happen through osmosis. There needs to be a set intentional plan. We're gonna do this in order to achieve this outcome. And then there needs to be the accountability piece that does not exist, unfortunately. And as I shared in the last panel, that unfortunately the higher we go, the wider it gets, the more monolithic it gets, unfortunately. And so people are talking to each other. And someone needs to say, you know what, we need to be more inclusive. We need to make the decision to bring somebody along who's talented, who's done his part, who's done everything you need to, and all you need is the door to open. And that's what it's really saddening to hear that. And that continues, it still continues. That even though you've done all your part, and here's the opportunity, but it's still being denied to you.
And the
that's
door is
racism.
ajar, but
That's
it's
what
not
I'm
open.
saying.
Yes.
Yes.
That's why
Most of the
I
time,
say,
you're-
I don't
totally
think
right.
it's racism, I would say systematic.
Yeah, it's
Because
systemic for
it's a
sure.
system. It's not, the process has already been set. it's mindsets that have already made standards, and so it's a system thing, and we have to change the system.
But there are decisions being made based on race.
Yes.
There's decisions being made
Which
based
is
on
still a
based on
mindset
based
and-
on
and
gender.
thought.
I totally
on-
understand
and
what
so on,
she,
yes.
where she's
I agree,
getting
I
at,
agree.
and
Thank you.
the same thing with you. It's just it's really it's a system, but in that system, sometimes I'm just gonna say sometimes, probably have a racist one that.
That's why I said the standard was already set.
But the problem, I think, is the system, and then, because whoever is behind the system is going to have the result that you understand?
This is the people
Yes.
that needs to be found accountable.
Exactly.
That also
Exactly.
needs to be identified, because we talk about the gatekeepers, but we don't identify them.
No.
And I think identifying them and then holding them accountable for their standards, their process and procedures is important.
A lot of times, my perception is that the gatekeepers end up being cultural memes. They end up being things that we've decided as a culture. Asian people can't drive. The person in front of you cuts you off, you pull up, you say, oh. It ends up being a cultural. This
That's
is what's
also
being
that
said.
mindset
These are
and
the
stereotype.
stories that we tell ourselves. This is not what I'm saying by any means, but what I'm saying, these are the stories that we tell ourselves. These are the things that we hear, be it on the fields at school and we grow up with, we hear them in the lunchrooms at
Once
work.
again, that was taught to you. That was what you saw on
Cultural
the
memes ingrained.
televised
Yeah,
vision,
yeah, absolutely.
right? It told you to think that anyone that drives bad is this. It told you to think that, so it's
In
that
as much if
mindset
there's not an
shift now
exact
to
person.
say, oh, it doesn't have to be an Asian. It can be an elderly person. It could be, someone
But
in
who
this
do
space.
we?
When you talk
who
about
do we-
stereotypes.
Yeah, exactly.
Who do we?
It's the
Yeah.
mindset the
Exactly.
media gave us.
Yeah.
That's the media propaganda brainwash that we're all under.
Yeah.
And so, how do we open our mind out of the box that they've kept us in, right? With what they've taught us through the media. How do we change that perception of stereotypes? How do we describe someone without saying black or white or Chinese? How do we start developing those dialogues, those words of description to address another human?
So
Do you mind if I jump in for just a moment?
Sure.
I've worked with survivors of trauma. The terminology had changed from victims of torture to survivors of trauma. Very, very different terminology. And I think, again, it's a part of educating the public to that accountability and what it is that we're trying to convey, what it is that we're trying to live and breathe at the core of who we are as a society. The richness of our community comes from accessibility, comes from being welcome at the table, comes from keeping that door open and not closing the door on someone or keeping it open just ajar. It's all of the above, and it's interesting because we have this framework of human rights within Canada, and I wonder if just for a moment we could have Nicole jump in and what our ideal is of what we expect human rights to be within the framework of Canada, and then we can broaden the conversation once again. Yeah.
Well, as I was listening to everybody speak, I could say, oh, I remember, like you have 30 human rights under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I can see a human right here, like, oh, there's this one. Well, first one, we're all born free and equal. Don't discriminate. There were quite a few others. And so to me is one of the tools is to know these rights. People do not know
No, they
about
don't.
these 30 human rights because as an educator, I have been in schools and many different classes, and I asked the students, how many human rights do you have? Nobody knows. We did a little survey about 125 people in a certain area, and out of 125, no one knew that they had 30 human rights. So, and we're going to continue our survey to find out, to really show that this petition that we are having, which is we're asking the government to include human rights education in the school system.
As a social
Gotta be
study
part of
or
the
something
curriculum.
where you can understand.
Yes.
That's where you come in, Dionne, in
And-
regards to education and that
Yeah.
access to know what is my right as a human, as a person, as someone on this earth. Because like you said, we're all created equal. But yet the world does not make us seem as if we're
No.
equal. They don't deliver inequality. And even in equity, equity is only fairness. What the gatekeepers think is fair to them.
Yeah.
And if they have a mindset of racism or a mindset of someone is superior and someone is less, there will never be change. So even if it is to set the standard under human rights and give everyone that, how hard is that?
Yes.
And why is it that no other prime minister or person in charge has even said basic human rights is needed? You know, food, water, shelter, you know, it's needed. Why do we have to be going crazy in regards to food especially? That's essential to life. Water, we pay for water. If you're in a house, you're paying for water,
There's
right?
a
So,
lot
and
more
this is something
Canadians that don't have
essential
access to
to
clean
your
water than
liberty.
you would believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot more Canadians that don't have access to clean water than you
And,
would believe.
and guess what? We're in not a third world country.
No.
So why is that happening? And this is where I'm saying in regards to essential things, necessities of life.
And
We
that's right.
can't even get that equally, much less equitably.
That's right. And Eleanor Roosevelt, who presented, it was adopted by the United Nations in 1948 after World War II, all the human rights atrocities. And Eleanor Roosevelt said, where do human rights begin? They begin in small places, so close that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world, yet they are, you know, the world to the individual. So they start in small places, and all the little things that you have been mentioning, that you see things are not right. So if people know these human rights, then we can have a basis, a foundation for justice, for peace, for freedom, and that's a good foundation. You know, what would be the ideal? Well, it starts with respecting other people as human beings. So knowing this as an ideal, you can move forward.
I also
So-
think we're very accepting of a lot of other things faster than accessibility and equity, right? We're able to say, change charters and change things to help certain people, but not to make everyone equal, right? So I feel like that also needs to be looked at. The many changes that are happening to give others access or to make others feel equal, but yet the people who's been here being pushed down or overlooked don't have the access because of who they are.
You got to make your voice heard.
Yeah.
How much
gotta
times
make
do
your
we
voice-
need to scream?
You
She's
have
mentioned
got to make your voice
what
heard.
happened in America with Floyd, and how much times did that happen after the fact? How many
Exactly.
other men
Yeah.
went through the same death process? And it didn't stop, right? And so the question is, if we know it's wrong, why does it continue to happen? Why do people not be held accountable for their actions? And there should be not this, like 10 times, 10 different people of the same
It goes back
cause?
to the system.
You said
the
it
system as
before,
well.
it's the system.
It's the system.
System.
And if I can say,
System, but to go at the system,
There's fail
So-
safes.
you know what I'm saying?
There's fail safes.
But there's a process, and once we
Yeah.
know
Starts
the
at the
process, we
This
can
is-
come together and fight it together.
So even understanding your human rights and understanding universal rights, I see the government might have a hard time mandating that across the board for youth. It's almost like arming the prisoners with what they need
Yeah.
to escape the prison, right?
yeah.
But that's
So-
what we need in order
Yeah.
to start
So
the mindset
it's
shift.
got to be community based.
After you, Kwasi, we're going to go to Dionne, and then anybody else that wants to jump in as well. Go ahead.
It's definitely, it has to be community based. Years ago, we would rely, I'm a Canadian kid, I'll mention again, I could be 4 blocks from my house and see someone that I think my mom might know and have that be enough to straighten me up. Have that enough for me to mind my language and my behavior. Not knowing if my mom knows this lady or not, but it just looks like a lady that my mom might know.
Yeah.
And that's enough for me to, and I think that's where the accountability it needs to happen in the home. We're losing generations to social media. We're losing our children to social media, to a perception of what things are. It started with food, and then it's what we accept. When was the last time somebody went through a drive-through and your meal looked like the one advertised on the picture,
Yeah, right?
Good one.
Honesty, yeah.
right? And you take it and you go, and you
We
enjoy
accept the
it, I
mediocre,
guess.
yes.
You accept the not so, you accept the lesser version of what you say you wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's
true.
how we
And
put it in,
yeah, and
Yeah.
how many different ways do you get dumbed down with that ideology before you give up?
Thank you, Dionne.
But
Oh,
it's,
sorry.
yeah, it's us. The responsibility falls on us. The onus is ours.
That's that acceptance thing, right? Yeah, for sure. What do we want to accept?
Yeah,
What's being drilled into us to accept?
exactly.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make the point that one thing that we really brought to heart or brought to light the notion of inequality and the systemic piece is COVID. We do know that it disproportionately hit people of color and also women. A lot of people have food insecurity, housing insecurity, and it hit those communities more. So that just shows that we're not starting off in the same position.
Thank
There
you.
were some people who were just kept on living.
Yeah.
They weren't struggling at all.
No.
And there's some people that could not even find a meal. And so that just shows the systemic piece. But at the same time, I also wanted to kind of just add a little caveat of my thinking that
Yes, yeah.
even though these systems exist, I still firmly believe that there is an opportunity to achieve what you want. You have to believe that. Otherwise, I mean, what's the point of,
Then
what's
you
the
would be
point? You have to
giving up.
believe that.
Yeah, you have to
Um,
continue.
And so I hope people are listening, that you need someone to open the door for you. And all of us do at some point.
Yes.
I remember speaking to a prominent lawyer in Massachusetts who said to me, he goes, you've done education, da-da-da. If you want to go here, you probably need somebody who knows how to open a door for you. Somebody who knows how to, because some people have their tuition paid for by their daddy, right? We know what happened with the scandal, with people getting paid to get into universities. Like those undercurrents that you mentioned, they exist. And how do we elevate people, and how do we get to those undercurrents that are happening, that are keeping people not achieving what they need to, even though they've done X, Y, and Z. And that's why I said it was racism in that last example. Because if you've gone to school, if you've been on Master Chef, you've done X, Y, and Z.
Why not?
What other reason could there be? And so
Yep.
I'm the belief that if it's this, eliminate everything, and at the end of the day, at the end of it, if you've done everything you can, what's left?
Yes, right.
And that's the way I live my life, and that's the way I do my analysis. Because otherwise you kind of say like, well, I need to work harder. But sometimes you've done all the work.
That's
You just
the
need an
basic
opportunity.
conclusion,
Yes.
Because it makes you
Yeah.
consider going off and doing things on your own. One of my sous chefs that's worked with me for years developed a program called Black of the House. It's a media organization, it's a media platform that she uses to tell the stories that aren't always told. And we battle about it and its concept a lot, because I don't think that we need a new platform to tell our stories. There is a platform to tell stories. We just need access to the platform to tell stories. Once we accept that we need to make our own, it just creates that division that is the problem to begin with.
It
right?
also creates that repetitive wheel too. You're
That's a good
doing the
point,
same
yeah.
thing I'm doing. Why can't we just come together and do it better? Do it together, where we add more, enhance it, make the wheel continue to turn, but we open up the scope of things, right? So it's also that fear of coming together, because we feel like there's no mentorship. You mentioned someone always telling you that you should go to someone to help you or open doors. There's rarely any real mentorship to the youths, to the younger generation. There's no mentorship to tell you. The guidance counselor doesn't give guidance anymore,
No, definitely not.
right? And so who do the youths and the next generation turn to? Social media.
It falls
Social
on,
media
again,
does not
it
teach
falls
them.
on us. It
Right?
falls on us.
So once again, accountability
Yeah.
on ourselves as parents, accountability on ourselves as even mentor. You can mentor youths
Absolutely.
and let them see the struggle is real.
Yep.
But if we struggle together, we can push the doors open, right? So it's about also giving that positive switch in the mind, right? I keep going back to the switch of mind, because I feel like We are all talking about the system, and the system is already the way it's set. How do we now break that wheel and create a new wheel?
And that's human right number 29.
Wow!
Yeah.
Look at
Okay,
that.
who
And
knows-
listen,
who
I
knows
don't know
human
my
right
human
number
right. I think you need to
29?
share with us our human rights,
And
because
that is
I didn't even know.
responsibility. All right? So, yes, we have all these rights, but we have number 29, and it's responsibility. So the fact that we're all here together, and we didn't
In terms of accessibility and having that door open.
Okay. I think you're going to agree with me. Boxing, we're going to talk about boxing, is a sport that was practiced by poor people from the beginning. You didn't have money, you couldn't play baseball, couldn't play whatever, so you put gloves in your hands and
Fight each other.
you go and fight, and usually, well, it's the strongest, might be a little bit more bad boy than the others, would come from hard neighborhoods and so on. But everybody had their chances. Understand? To practice the sport. Today, it's being commercialized, like everything else. So you have monthly fees to practice. You obviously need to purchase equipment, and you need to travel. Then competition, you need to pay for them. They won't pay for your traveling, and it's reality of today. So
Which now makes it not accessible.
no,
Yes.
no. Even if you have the best talent, the kids won't be able to practice the sports because they're limited financially. That's a reality of today. So the access has been shut. And what I'm saying, like monthly fees, it's not a little bit. It's a lot of money
Oh, big time.
for a lot of families that maybe just meeting both hands. And they have to keep the kids occupied, so they don't go and put themselves in trouble. So it's a wheel that is turning.
Is
Don't
there
have money?
anything in place now for fairness, to look at membership, to look at maybe waiving a monthly fee, or
Sponsorship, yeah.
what is in place now
We are
to give us that?
we in XOB, we have a program we call Beyond the Brand. Okay? Yes, we are a corporation. We're here to, for sure, make profits. But at what point we don't? There's some things that we don't accept. We don't accept that a kid somewhere, starting in Canada, other countries, won't be able to practice sports that they like because they see their idols on TV. Just the same thing as kids looking at hockey players and they want to play hockey. But you cannot play your sport, practice your sport, because of the financial situation which you're living in. So we created a program called Beyond the Brand. Beyond the Brand is, when you come to XOB, you can bring any gloves, any equipment from any other brands. Doesn't matter if it's not an XOB boxing
Branded.
gloves. You bring it to us, and we're going to give you a discount. But then, the gloves that we get from you, we're going to look at the quality of the product. If it's still usable, we're going to distribute it to so that other kids might
Have
have
the access.
to, even though he doesn't wear an XOB, which I would love him to wear an XOB glove in his hand, but he won't be, but at least he'll be able to practice his sport. So that's why we say XOB Beyond the Brand. You understand? So that's a program that we're putting on.
It's a
right
great
now.
initiative.
And like
It
I said,
is
at
amazing,
least you
yeah.
are being accountable. You see what's happening, and you're creating initiatives and these type of things to make fairness, to create the access for the ones that can't afford the many or the branded or the, and I like that you guys are thinking outside the box, because not everyone is thinking about that. They only think business first, not community, not people, but business,
I
right?
just wanted to speak to that actually in terms of the Xbox and drum corps in particular, if anybody's familiar with drum corps and marching bands, so to speak, in the States, but drum corps in Canada. At one time, it was provided an opportunity for people who did not necessarily have the finances to join, and they were able to learn, drumming or playing a trumpet or performing arts in some respects. But now it has become so commercialized that it's not accessible to the origins of why it had started. It has become unattainable, actually. So it's quite unfortunate because there are many people out there who learn to play music, who learn to march, who learn to collaborate, who learn to be a part of a community that maybe they weren't a part of a community before. So that is being taken away by that commercialism that you're talking about. So what you're doing at Xbox Fighting is tremendous and really speaking to what we all should be doing in our communities. Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, commending you for your initiative.
Thank you very much.
And if I can just chime in, so to echo what you're saying, so I think that a takeaway from this is, like an action step is for these businesses to listen and hear that when you're providing access to somebody, i.e. Boxing, you're not just letting them in the door, you're actually fulfilling dreams, you're giving opportunities that could maybe segue to somebody getting a job, getting the limelight they want. I don't think people realize the magnitude.
Changing and saving lives,
Absolutely.
for sure.
And so when we keep thinking about monetizing, we're not thinking about the human piece and what people need to get ahead.
Yeah.
But like, it's one part of the problem. Understand?
Yes.
It's not
Small
because
part,
you
yes.
have the gloves that you will be able to pay for the monthly subscriptions, the traveling, and everything. I would love to help,
Yes.
but there's a reality that we can't just do everything. But starting with that is already for us a step towards maybe we're always open to ideas
Yes.
to
Yeah.
maybe be able to help.
It takes those involved. I grew up in Whitby, Ontario, small town in Ontario. It's a hockey town. My peers that were into hockey, every Friday night they had to go to the bingo, and they volunteered here and they volunteered there, and they were involved in the community doing different things because they were raising money for their organization. I didn't get it at the time. I was new to the area. I was a minority. I didn't play hockey. So I wasn't part of what was happening. But looking back now, they would always be doing a bottle drive. I would see them. My dad would go to the liquor store, and I would see kids from my class outside the liquor store taking donations and it went a long way. I've seen those organizations grow. I'm sure that there's been government handouts and hand-ups, but like you said, as time has progressed, it's become more and more difficult to access these things. It's not just, okay, I'm gonna start a football team and go ahead and get a few kids together. It's insurance, it's what park do you use, it's not as easy as people make it seem.
Yeah, the
Can I-
reality is that there's a lot of fees involved in because of it's harder than before. Before you could get away with, talking about the 80s, you could get away with some things, you didn't need a permit for to practice in the sports in that
That's the new
park.
level of
the
you're
staffing.
going to pay for
Yes.
this, and you have to
People
pay
tell
for
me all the
coaching.
time, you should get a food truck and you can put your food truck here, you'd make a killing. The government stopped you from having a food truck that you can put anywhere.
Yeah.
You can't have a food truck that you can put anywhere. You just can't.
I
Not
just
in
want to
Southern
also add
Ontario.
to what you mentioned in regards to boxing, the fact that you acknowledge that you still have to pay monthly fees, you still have to pay for competitions, yes, you try to give them the leeway in having the right equipment, even if it's not your branded equipment, they still have to do the other fees and the other things that will stop them from getting there. The fact that you've acknowledged that, I think what you should do is now think with your team in regards to, like Kwasi said, how can we raise those funds? How can we create a sponsorship process? What will be the standards for this sponsorship process where we could at least sponsor
5 candidates to go further, right? So can we do bouts where we're fundraising and we have friendly bouts within the system so that people pay to come and see the bouts, and now we use that money to fund one person, and then we do another, so how do you develop a new initiative in regards to sponsorship for the other things that is still preventing the excess?
And what
We
I
all-
can see from everybody speaking about, the stops and the application forms, and you have to do this and all that, it's all connected to making more money. It
Yes.
seems that the accent on human beings has been, how much money can you make out of
Numbers.
this person?
That's right.
We're no longer people, we're numbers.
There you go. And that's why,
Is that a fire?
and that's why human rights education is so important, because it's all about the respecting of other people, right?
And this is where service organizations, et cetera, and community needs to step up and offer that sponsorship, extend a hand. Why should they want to be a part of, let's say, for example, a partnership with Xbox? Why do they want to enable the youth of today, but the future of tomorrow? It should come from the core of everything they do in all of their business, to offer that guidance and mentorship, as you spoke of, to create opportunity, to allow for opportunity to shine light on the collective, right?
You see, XOB already sponsor some
Well,
youth.
You didn't
Oh,
mention that,
right.
so that's why I was like, how do we create it, right? Because
The natural
you mentioned
progression,
what
for
you
sure.
said, right? And in my mind, I'm a planner, I'm a thinker, so I'm like, okay, how do we do this?
I hear you. But you know what I mean? We're a young company, first of all, and we have to grow
Of course.
to be able to sponsor this, take time for this, go and blah, 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 organize this. These people, they're not going to do it for free. We have to pay for them. You understand?
But I
I
think
have a
also
question.
bringing awareness that we have great talent here, we just need a push to get them out
Can
there,
I-
The thing is, like, every process takes time.
Yes,
You
like
know?
she mentioned,
Like we have-
applications and,
Exactly. We
Yes.
have a dream. We have some values that we want to project, but everything takes time. We can't just go and only concentrate on that. We need to be able to make it
Viable?
viable to be able to help. You understand?
Yeah.
Because
and
if
yeah.
we don't, if we only do for the kids, which if I could, I would. But
Yeah.
the reality of it's not as
There's
easy.
gotta be
Can I
more
make
than
a-
one person.
Yes,
to
exactly.
do more.
It's not as easy
We're all
to do
very-
it as I wish it would be. You understand?
Yes.
So already that we have the conscience and that we put in place the structure to be able to help, we know still that, if we can do more, we will. But when time comes.
Just want to jump in for a second to Fred, what you were saying, and then I noticed Dionne wanted to say something, and also Nicole. But just to piggyback on what you were saying there, I think for me, I was thinking about why doesn't community want to be a part of Xbox and sponsorship? They should want to come to you for all the wonderful work that you're doing, right?
Okay. A lot of people come to us. You understand? And if I would listen to all the people that comes to us, we would have to give out everything.
Oh,
You understand?
okay, gotcha.
So that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
reality that we have to face. So sometimes breaks my heart. I have to say no on that one. This one I have to say yes. Not this one. So you see, this is what we have to deal with, and it's not easy. So we have to. So we say, all right, we're going to pick the equipment from others. Maybe that they don't care. They will change pair of gloves every 6 months, every year. But that pair of gloves will make a difference to somebody else, starting here in Canada and even other countries. You understand?
Yes.
So that's one thing that right now with the structure that we have, we are comfortable, able to put in place and push. You understand? Next level, when we get there, that we know that we can, because if we crash, then nobody's going to get help.
Yes, yeah,
You
that's
understand?
totally.
But when we reach that other level, and we be able to, we will, why? Because XOOB, we have in mind of helping aider son prochain.
Oui, to help to help other people.
To help others, you understand? So it's not only about profits.
Got it. Yeah, for sure.
So
Thank you. Thank you. That's awesome. Dionne and then Nicole. I think Dionne
So-
first.
No, I was going to say that,
Yeah.
especially now, as I shared with the George Floyd, there's a lot of people who are interested in philanthropy, and in particular pouring into Black and Brown communities to help get to the next level, so to speak. I'm not saying you're not doing this per se, but there's money out there. There's a lot of money out there, and there are also a lot of good people in high positions of power that are willing to assist. Access, but it's also, it absolutely is access. But you know, we talk about the 6 degrees of separation. I think it's like 1 degree separation. Sometimes sometimes we also have to. Speaking from experience here, I had a business for about 10 years, and when I decided, you know what, I'm going to ask this person for assistance, the response was, "Oh my, I'm so glad you asked me. Oh, I loved you," and the doors opened up. The clients I had, I wouldn't have even imagined. So sometimes it's taking that leap of faith, and I don't want to sound like it's, you know, unicorns and rainbows, so to speak, but I'm just saying that sometimes it's us also saying, you know what, I'm going to swallow my pride. I'm not saying you're not doing this, but I'm going to knock on doors. I'm going to be unapologetic. I'm going to be in your ear. I'm going to be on you, and I'm going to keep calling. And even sometimes you can be creative and create like a bartering system. So, hey, you want something from me, I want something from you. And sometimes when you go to somebody, the first thing you should say is, how can I assist you? Before you make your ask, you say, how can I be of service? And oftentimes people will just like, wow. And then that way you can
Start a barter.
start the relationship and get what you want in the future. So there's possibility to get around there. And back to the gatekeepers piece, it's a lot, people often want to help. I really think the majority of people do. There are some heels out there for sure, but I really think the majority of people, they want to help. They want to find a way to assist, and I think we have to be creative and try and find ways to reach those people. So for example, I'm gonna do what I can to network the people that I know to see what I can do to help you. I'm not saying I can do anything, but I
Thank you.
you can make connections. I mean, that's the way you do. You have to make connections. And now that you've said openly, I need this, which we don't often do. Someone may be listening right now and may come in and call you. So we have to be open and be willing to say, you know what, I need this assistance in this particular area.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Nicole, I know you've been hanging around patiently there. Did you want to insert something and then we can kind of open it up again? Thank you. That's
If
awesome,
you look
Dionne.
at the world and the way it is going, and we have a human rights problem. There is like so many human rights violations, and
Especially recently with COVID.
yes, totally, a lot. So we still have wars, we still have these conflicts, we still have hatred, we have ethnic racism, ethnic crimes, we have racism, and I believe that man is fundamentally good. So we have a lot of good people, but we do have these little elements in our society that are destroying it. That's why you have to have a human rights vision. What are the fundamental human rights that everyone should have? So to me, this Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is a milestone historic document, is very important because in the beginning, well, it was barbarism, right? So hey, this is what we do and how there's no human rights there. And then it was, well, the king and the nobility and the rich people, and they had
And the
their
money
rights,
and the
but-
gold.
But the peasant over there, well, take his home, well, you can always kill him if you want to, right? So human rights kind of like, has
Went
been
back.
building, but we have so much to do. Because if we had these human rights as an ideal and in application, there would be peace, there would be understanding, there would be respect, and there would not be so many obstacles. Not that it would handle everything, there will always be problems, that's the way it goes, but you have to be willing to, put your boxing gloves on and shake
And
it
fight
up.
it.
When you have to go, you have to go.
So my question to you, Nicole, is how do we educate everyone on their universal human rights? I heard you mention that is a big piece that's coming out, and how do we get access to that? How do we get an in-depth understanding of what each principle is, and how does that reflect to the human person, and how do we get these things? Because me, at an age that I am right now, we don't need to go there, I don't know my human right. I don't know, I know bare necessities, but I don't know my right as a human in this world today.
I'm
And
only scoring about 5 out of 30 myself.
do you understand?
right?
So even to the race card, the fact that I'm a black woman, I sometimes think that human rights don't appeal to me, or it's not for me, because in any country that you go to, they treat black people differently. And so, being who I am, I feel like it's there, but it doesn't apply to me. And, I think that will empower me now, if I knew what it was, to stand firmer, to fight stronger, with more passion, because I know. Right now, I don't know.
So
And
here's what you do. You go on the website.
what is the website? Just tell the people.
Well, it is youthforhumanrights.org, and there is a free online human rights course, and you get a certificate at the end. And it takes about 4 to 6 hours, and there's a lot of videos and short questions, but you get the basic foundation about human rights and what they are, and having an understanding. So that's one thing that you can do. And then, of course, the idea is to spread it, because you remember article number 20?
Each one teach one.
And that's the responsibility. And they are beautiful. There's a documentary. It's called The Story of Human Rights. How did human rights come about? So it's a 10 minutes short, and it's very lively. It's not boring. And the way it's presented, it's like for anyone that can get it. It's not like something, to me, human rights, I thought, was very complicated, and you have to be a lawyer to be able to understand all this, right? Well, I'm not a lawyer, and I
Understand.
This should be adapted for elementary school students.
Yes.
This should be
I
introduced
just
in
want to know
grade
from my
1.
children,
It
so I
should
can
be
educate
introduced in
them.
grade 1. It should be
Yes.
updated in grade 4 with another version. You should be learning versions of this all the way through to the end of high school, even
And-
into the
And you
first
start
grade.
with basic
Yeah.
into more advanced understanding of
Well,
what it is.
and-
Well, let's make this public. I intend, because I have quite a few signatures on my petition for the Legislative Assembly to be able to get human rights education in schools.
I would
So
sign
I
that
will
for you.
be, I will
I
be
will
making
sign
sure
I will
that,
definitely sign that.
we all, yes, we're just signing it. I've brought my petition.
I will sign it.
And when we do the presentation, I want to have a delegation of people who believe in it. So we're not just going to go with one person saying, hey, can you do this?
No.
We're going to go with an army of people.
With a unity, with,
Yeah.
with,
Can-
with
can-
unity, I like
Can we
it.
share the signature? Is it online?
Yeah, well, I have it here, mine for
I know,
Ontario,
yeah,
but I can send it to you online.
online,
Yes.
so we can
Please send us
spread
the
it to
online
all.
link.
Yeah,
Because
spread
now
it
you
to
have
our,
activists
contacts.
Yes.
that would help spread your awareness,
That's
right?
So-
And that's what I think we need more of.
Yeah.
How we're sitting here and we're talking and we're expressing what you've brought to the table, I think is necessary. We do need to know our human rights, not just the children, even us adults don't know
But
it.
can I bring it back though to the behavior piece though?
Yes.
Because I think there's often, we learn theories, but there's never a translation into practice. So how do you bridge the theory with practice? And it comes back to our behavior. So if someone is hungry and they ask you for food, are you going to feed them? Are you stepping over the homeless person on the street when you can offer them something? Who are you pouring into? Like, I know just little things. If I'm in a restaurant and I see a young person who's serving, I'll say, "How you doing? Are you in school? What are you doing?" And oh, can I make a connection for you? I mean, that's the way we should be living. We should be helping to educate and pour in, because I know I want people to do that to my children, and so there's ways that we can be doing that on a daily basis. And I really firmly believe that, what you put out, you get back.
Oh.
I firmly believe that, tenfold. And so if we just think about, okay,
That's all that it takes.
at
But
the,
that's
at the human, at the human level, what are we doing for each other? And
Another
sometimes it being
mind
intentional
shift.
every single day. What are you doing every day to help somebody? What are you doing? It's not, we're not living for us.
Yeah, it's
We have to change that mindset.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But
I love that you brought it to the table so that the people will know it's the mindset. Let's change that. Let's bring awareness to the things that we're lacking, the access we don't have. They don't even, I think they know, but they don't care because we don't make no noise.
Imagine not having drinking water.
Exactly, in
Well, yeah,
Canada.
yeah. And a very
In
good po-
Canada.
Yes, and in
In
Canada.
Canada.
And as an immigrant myself, actually, and having to take my citizenship when we came here, if we're learning the human rights at that time. If you ask anybody on the street today, the very odd person would not know what their human rights are. So very much so that we're needing to educate, enable, and shine light on the collective in order for us to make change. It's for the richness of our community, the benefits of our community overall. We have about a few more minutes just to wrap up, and I'm wondering if perhaps we could get words of wisdom from our panelists as we're moving forward on this discussion and kickstarting the Toronto Diversity Festival tomorrow at Nathan Phillips Square. We want to take a moment to thank Moksha Canada Foundation for allowing this discussion to happen.
Yes.
As you can see and hear, we could go on, and we hope to go on and continue this conversation in our families, in our communities, and wherever it takes us. So I'm just going to get some words of wisdom, starting with Kwasi at the far left. You're right if you're watching on screen.
Words of wisdom. Treat people how you want to be treated.
Yes.
That's very important. Eat good food, drink lots of water, and look out for me. My name is Kwasi Douglas. I go by the Food God, and I am forever and always will be making the world a better place, one bite at a time.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
Nicole,
Okay, well, I'm going to read the first paragraph of the Universal
Please do.
Declaration of Human Rights.
Please
I feel like
do.
a teacher now.
we need it.
And it says, its opening paragraph is a powerful affirmation of the principles that lie at the heart of the modern human rights system. And here it is. Recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation for freedom, justice, and peace in the world.
Here.
Right on. Thank you.
Want to practice any sports? Takes hard work and dedication. So never give up your dreams because it's always started with a dream. Okay? All champions will be able to tell you that. So come and check us, XOB Fighting Gear, on Instagram, Facebook, and our website. And feel free to contact us if you want to know more about our program, XOB Beyond the Brand.
So I would say that there are isms out there, there's systems out there, but I firmly believe being black, being a woman, being gay, or whatever your identity is, it's not a deficit. You can still achieve what you want, and you have to believe that. And so I hope people who are listening just take that as a takeaway, that just keep striving, keep going, and things will always work out, I believe.
Wow.
Wow. Wow.
So, for me, my words of wisdom to everyone would say, it was already said on the thing, but it's always my favorite. Actions speak louder than words. If we want to be equitable, if we want to be accessible, action speak louder than words. You can't only say it, you have to show it. You have to start the initiatives. You have to bring awareness or identify the issue so that change can be done. Whether it is in your personal life or within any relationship or in anything you want. Actions speak louder than words. You always look at the action, not the words, because the action tells you what is to come. The words can always lead to illusion, right? And then my other thing would be, it's better to try than to fail. It's better to try and fail than it is to fail to try. So, meaning never give up. Always try. If the door closes, knock another door. It's always good to put your foot forward, never give up. It's better to try and fail than it is not even trying at all. Because if you don't try, guess what? Nothing happens. No change comes. So, two things I give you: Better to try and fail than it is to fail to try, and your action speaks louder than your words.
Wow. My heart is full, and I thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Lynn McEntee. I've been your humble host, being a part of the Toronto Diversity Festival, our panel discussion on equity and access. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to give us a like on social media. Follow Moksha Canada Foundation. 1,000 thank yous for joining us.
Thank you.